Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In this episode, I'm going to be giving you a walkthrough of my travel grab bag. I'm going to be discussing what it contains and why it contains it. So, before you go anywhere, if you're going to be travelling, more than a grab bag, what you really need is a passport. Now, this is my travel wallet, which contains my passport, amongst other things that over the years I've decided are crucial bits of documentation and stuff that I should always have with me. So I'm going to go through it with you now. So first and foremost, obviously, passport. Now you might notice that mine has a little blue sticker on the spine, and that's something that I kind of picked up years ago as a tip for when travelling with a passport. Having some identifier on it on the spine so that you can easily pick it out of a pile is really useful. Whether you be at an airport travelling with a group, or you're at a checkpoint with a bunch of other foreigners and you need to be able to spot your passport in a pile of other passports, or whether or not your passport's been taken by an official, etc. Being able to visually identify it from the outside is super helpful. Next thing I have in here, which is really useful to have, are spare passport photos. Passport photos are one of those things that you invariably need in countries where there's a bit more bureaucracy. Often you might need it for permits or other bits of bureaucratic paperwork, and just having a couple of spare passport photos is a real lifesaver. I've actually shot these in my studio and then printed them up on 10x8 sheets. As long as you know the specifications that they need to be and the legal requirements that they need to meet, then there's no reason why you can't do your own passport photos, and it's a hell of a lot cheaper than getting them from a passport booth, I can tell you that. Also in here I have a small card which is laminated and contains crucial contact numbers. This is kind of contact numbers for my next of kin, emergency contact numbers. Depending on where I'm going, if I'm going to be working in country with a team, I might have some local hospital numbers on here, I might have embassy numbers, etc. It really depends on the job, but this one is just my kind of standard one with friends and family and people that I might need to contact. Just means I have a backup from any kind of electronic copy in case I lose my phone or lose a computer or anything like that. Back here we have a yellow fever certificate. Now these are really crucial if you're travelling to certain parts of the world, generally in Africa and Asia. They like to see this on arrival. If you don't have it in some countries, it can cause issues even coming into the country in the first place. So I always carry that in with my passport. I also carry a photocopy of it, because these are the type of things that you can hand off to somebody and they can go walk about quite easily. So having a hard copy of that is also really useful. Along with that, I have a vaccine card, and the vaccine card effectively is a history of all my inoculations and vaccines, so that I can see when I've had them, the date that I had them, and whether or not any of them have run out. This is useful when you're in country in case you come a cropper with anything and somebody needs to know when you last had your tetanus jab or when you had a Hep A jab. Having a record of those is quite useful. Now you can pick these up in most kind of travel clinics or at your doctor's or somewhere like that. You should be able to get a copy, and they'll be filled out and signed by the person who's giving you the jab. I also, on the other side, I keep a photocopy of my passport. It's not the only copy of my passport I have. I then have a further backup photocopy of my passport kept elsewhere, but it's always useful to have copies of your passports. In the back here I have currencies, so dollars. Always travel with US dollars because they're easy to change and keep them in high denominations, so $50 bills, $100 bills rather than $5 and $10 bills if you can. I will keep any further currencies, local currencies, and also usually UK pound sterling. I also carry a small USB memory card. This is quite useful just because it means you can have electronic data stored and you can keep a copy of that. Next up we have my travel insurance card, health insurance card, credit cards and frequent flyer cards. The other thing I have in here is the humble paperclip. Now the reason I have paperclips in here are for changing your SIM in your phone. If you arrive in country and you need to pop your SIM out of your phone, it's really useful to have something like a paperclip to be able to open that compartment. Also useful just as a paperclip to hold documents together. Now that's the basics of that wallet. The wallet itself is RFID protected, so if anybody's trying to scan it electronically, it's protected from that. That's another thing that I would recommend. Now this is always on my person when I'm traveling, and it just means that most of my documents and stuff that I might need are to hand and all in one place. And that's really useful if you're trying to be organised. So moving on to the bag itself, this is a bag that I picked up many years ago in a market in Vietnam. There's plenty of other brands that do them. I think Maxpedition probably do a version of this, along with all sorts of military surplus kind of stuff. I don't particularly love the fact it's camo, because I don't necessarily want to look or be affiliated with any kind of military when I'm traveling or working, but it is what it is. It's beginning to fall apart, but the reason I like this bag is that it is I can wear it over my shoulder if I need to. Otherwise it's small enough just to be thrown and picked up and put into my suitcase, and it contains everything I need it to contain. On the outside, starting with, I have carabiners. Now the carabiners are not heavy duty carabiners, but they are really useful for being able to connect things together. I quite often use them in conjunction with my photography equipment, so they're great to have. I have a Hero clip on here, which was a recent purchase, so I can't say I've actually used this in anger yet. It basically doubles as a carabiner and a hook mechanism, so you can hang bags should you need to. If you were in a hostel or something and you wanted to keep your bag off the floor, then this is the kind of utility it has. As I said, it's a relatively new purchase. I'm not sure how useful it will be yet, but when I do use it, I'll make sure to take some pictures and put them up on the on Instagram and behind the scenes. You know, it'll be exciting. What else have we got in here? So opening it up. First things first, I keep travel adapters. These are pretty standard travel adapters that you can pick up in most airports, and they have USB ports in them. Pretty much self-explanatory. They work most places around the world because they're universal. They've got loads of different ways of adapting to wherever you are. So I always have 2 of them with me. On the other side, I have, depending on my camera system that I'm traveling with, I'll have the camera charger. This is the charger for the Fuji X series XT3 battery grip. And the reason I got that in there is on the last job I was using the XT3s, and this allows me to charge 2 batteries at once in the grip. In the main compartment, to start with, we have the Leatherman Wave. Now, if you've seen my lighting kit video, you'll know that I'm a fan of these. This is a great multi-tool. As the name suggests, it's got a multitude of uses. The reason I like the Wave, though, is that it comes with the bit kit, and the bit kits allow you to use screwdriver pieces, Allen keys, all that kind of stuff can attach to it. Now, depending on where I'm traveling, I might have a more heavy duty blade with me or something smaller, but this does for most things. If I'm camping, it proves quite useful because I have a fire starter ferro rod inbuilt on the side of this and a knife steel to keep it sharp on the other side. So that's all contained in one package that can sit on your belt. So that's quite useful. Next up, we have a Olight H2R torch, which is a great super bright light. This can clip onto your belt and the clip is removable. It has a magnetic bottom, which is really useful. And what I like about it is that it comes with a harness that allows you to use it as a head torch. So this magnetically clips in there and then you drag that across and you have a head torch which you can change the angle of. But it's all in a package that allows you to have 2 for 1 effectively, a head torch and a normal torch in one package. Next up, and slightly underrated, humble electrical tape. If you're going to carry tape in your bag, having a whole roll of gaffer is probably not a great use of the space. Electrical tape is waterproof and quite durable, quite sticky. It's got a multitude of uses in a small package. Next up, we have some paracord and clothes pegs. These aren't torture implements, these are simple wooden clothes pegs, and the reason for this is sometimes I'll be staying somewhere where I need to wash a shirt or something in the bathroom and need a clothesline. You know, even if you're staying in a really fancy hotel, sometimes you haven't got time to hang around and wait for the laundry service, or sometimes it's astronomically expensive. And sometimes you're staying in somewhere where there is no service like that at all because you're in the middle of the boondocks. So having paracord to be able to throw up your own line, doesn't have to be for washing, it can be all sorts. Like paracord is super useful, but having the clothes pegs means I can use it for that. Another crucial bit of kit that I travel with is a spare phone. Now this is just a simple non-smartphone, it's a Nokia. This is unlocked, it's cheap and cheerful. I can charge this and it'll last for weeks. And it means that I can effectively buy a local SIM and know that it will work on something. If it doesn't work on my smartphone, it should work on this. And equally is a backup in case I lose my phone, but I still need comms and I'm in country. So it doesn't take up much space. The plug actually packs down quite small, which for a UK plug is quite nifty. Almost packs flat, which is great. Snacks, always really useful to have snacks. Sometimes on jobs you might be getting up before dawn and leaving camp or leaving the hotel without having had breakfast. You might be working through lunch and all sorts, and just being able to have snacks to grab out of your suitcase and put in your bag for the day is really useful. Next thing up, we have a cork ball and some tiger balm. This is because quite a lot of the time when you're going on long haul flights and you get off the other end, you're going to be a bit stiff and sore, especially the older you get, and especially if you're carrying lots of camera equipment, heavy bags, whatever. So I have this so that I can do self-massage on my kind of glutes, on my quads and on my IT bands, and even on my back if I pop it in a sock, throw it over my shoulder. Tiger balm is just a kind of light relief. Also good if you are stuck on a plane and you're getting congested. Stick a bit of that under your nose and whew. Next up we have a lighter. Always useful to have a form of fire. I'm not a pyromaniac or anything, but useful to have. Obviously if you're camping it's an imperative. The bright orange tape has a couple of reasons. That is so that I can firstly see it in the dark. If I drop it, lose it, it's easy to spot. Secondly, good place to store tape. And thirdly, certain tapes you can tear off small sections of them and they will actually work as a form of tinder, which will allow you to actually get a fire started. These, most photographers will have hanging around probably if they used to buy compact flashcards. These used to come with them, and they're just small neoprene containers, but I found they're very useful for containing batteries. So I have one which contains AA batteries and one that contains AAA batteries. You can get 4 AA batteries or 8 AAA batteries. It's just an easy way to contain them. If you wanted to be really anal, you could probably mark them up with different colours so you know which one was which. Hand sanitizer gel, especially nowadays, it's good to keep clean. Sometimes if you're working remotely somewhere, away from somewhere where the water isn't safe to wash your hands with or whatever, then it's really useful just to have a small pot of hand sanitizer. I also carry wet wipes. Again, really useful when you're working somewhere a little bit more remote. These ones by the Cheeky Panda are biodegradable, which I prefer because I've, believe it or not, been down the sewage systems in the UK and seen how many of these end up clogging up the sewers because they're not biodegradable and people flush them down the toilet. So having biodegradable ones, a bit more expensive, but better for the environment. Compact flash and SD card reader. This is a spare. I have one on my laptop, but useful always to have spares of everything. Along with the kind of on the electronic front of things, we also have 2 SD solid state drives. Now these are fantastic because these are the Samsung T5s. They're 1 terabyte each. They're tiny, and I can have a drive A and a drive B, so I can always have 2 backups, one on each, and a backup on my computer. And if I leave the hotel or I'm out in the evening, I can quite happily put one of these in my pocket and know that I've always got a copy with me. Next up, chewing gum, self-explanatory. If you've been on a long flight, good to have. Corkscrew. I once arrived at a hotel room and had a complimentary bottle of wine left for me, but no way of opening it. And I probably could have called down to reception, but in my slightly befuddled stage, I didn't think of doing that and opened the bottle of wine with my shoe, which is an interesting technique and can work and did work, but takes a long time, and people next door to me banging on the wall with my shoe and a wine bottle in it probably wondered what the hell I was doing. So a bit of a luxury and a bit of a first world problem, but yeah, having a corkscrew with you, worthwhile. Padlocks, just spare padlocks. These work with my Peak Design bag because of the zip configuration on that bag. I needed the ones with the loops, so they're always useful to have. Q-tips for cleaning your ears. No, these are actually for cleaning the viewfinder of the camera. Sometimes getting into that eyepiece can be a bit tricky and get dirt and grit in there, so having a way of getting something in to clean it's really useful. Along with the cleaning theme, the lens pen for my camera. I have a cleaning system that I normally pack in my camera bag, but having one of these is just really useful. I have also an emergency sewing kit in here and some safety pins. I've never had to use it, but if I ever managed to split my trousers on a shoot or something like that, I'd be grateful for having it in the bag. The other thing I have in here is my international driving permit. Now, it's always good to know whether or not you're going to need this depending on where you're going in the world. Some countries, they don't require one. Other ones, it's imperative to have. And your European, UK or US driving license won't necessarily cut it. So find out whether or not you need one before you travel, and you can normally get one like this which will cover several countries. I keep a backup of my passport in here. This is kept in a waterproof dry bag, and I have a spare waterproof dry bag in there as well. Drugs, always good to have drugs. These are ibuprofen, paracetamol, that kind of stuff. So nothing too hardcore. Nitol. This is literally a backup. Again, I normally keep my proper pharmaceutical kind of needs attended to in my first aid kit and wash bag, but this is just so I have a backup. If I run out for whatever reason, if I haven't replenished the stock and I need painkillers, then it's good to have some. Wires, an unfortunate byproduct of the digital age is we need cabling. So I always keep spare cables for everything that I need, that I will use that's electronic. I always have a backup cable with me and I keep them all in one place. Not sure if I mentioned this before, but Velcro zip ties. If you've seen my lighting kit bag video, you'll know how much of a fan I am of these. They're fantastic for organising cabling, but also just attaching things to things, myriad of uses. And the good thing is they sit quite happily on top of my bag. Bungee cords. These are super useful little things to have. Lots of photography is about rigging things and attaching one thing to another, so the more ways you have of doing that, the better. You'll always find a use for these. Envelopes. These are airmail envelopes. Really good if you're trying to send a postcard back home or a letter if you live in the 19th century. But also useful if you need to leave a note for someone at a hotel desk or whatever and you want a bit of privacy. Just useful to carry your own envelopes, I've found. Business cards. These are my spare business cards, so I know I have some backups. Tissues. Again, just a useful thing to have if you're on a plane or whatever, and whatever, just useful always to have spare tissues. And then I have Pro Plus here. I don't really use these that often, but sometimes at a pinch it can be useful if you arrive somewhere and you're absolutely jet lagged or you haven't slept particularly well and you need to be on your game and there's no coffee available, then having a little caffeine hit in a tablet is useful. Another thing that is kind of worth taking is a power strip. Now this is has a USB attachments and is quite small. It doesn't always live in here because it doesn't always fit, but it will normally go in my suitcase, so I kind of have thrown it in the video as well. I remember once on a job in the Congo, in DRC, the only power point that worked in my hotel room was actually in the shower, and it meant that I had to charge my camera batteries in the soap dish. If I'd had this, at least I could have moved them out of harm's way and potential electrocution. So yeah, always useful to have a power bank. It means that you can turn one plug into 3, so worthwhile. That is pretty much everything that I travel with in my travel grab bag. Now, I'd be really interested to see if you have any suggestions, if you have any ideas of other stuff that I should consider putting in that, because yeah, I'm always open to learning and finding out what other people do. So if you've got any ideas and you want to list them in the comment below, then please do. I did this video because there was some interest after I posted some stuff on Instagram, on my Insta stories. I did a little vague walkthrough of this bag and people said they wanted to see it more in depth. So that's what this video is for. I hope it was of interest and I hope to see you back here soon. Thanks for watching.